Anonymous Series Part 1.
I'm going to be giving Anonymous a call, which we haven't spoken to in a while, and he always offers up some helpful advice and insights on our spiritual journey beyond the confusion of the material world.
Hello, is this the anonymous listeners?
Yes, we've all been waiting for your. It's been a while. I know you've just came back from your annual retreat to the Edgar Cayce Center.
Yeah, it was great to see some new people. I met some new people, some younger folks, and some of the older folks came back, and great speakers. Sidney Kirkpatrick, who wrote the recent biography, 20 years ago now, the American Prophet, was there with his wife Nancy. Both gave excellent talks, very inspiring and funny. And we had, of course, Kevin Tedeschi, the president there, spoke, and a little sad moment because one of the people who helped to bring him into this river, so to speak, she passed away this past year, since last year. As well as a biographer of Cayce's secretary, Mickey Klug, who was a very generous woman. She talked with me, at length, from when I'd call her up, she was down in Virginia, sweet southern accent. She passed on also. So, every year you find a few. Ann Clapp, who was the first person I went to hear years ago in the 80s, she spoke about Atlantis and Egypt, ancient Atlantis and Egypt. And she's also passed on. These people, up there in years. But they were, newcomers, and, it was delightful to be there. And, Larry from Arkansas, and, he brought his wife, she had a great time, and Dave, the chiropractor, with his wife, Thomas, were in the room next to me. So it was really good. It's like a family reunion, The beach is beautiful. It's just inspiring to see people coming from all over the world, really, to affirm and recommit or be inspired to continue on. And there's somebody, just to leave off with that real quick, I really want to talk about other people besides Edgar, who also, were used by God in our time. But I'll just leave off saying, Sidney Kirkpatrick and his wife wrote a recent book called True Tales about people who encountered Edgar and were helped, as usual, by people who the doctors could not help. And there's one segment in there on somebody called the Little Prophetess, who was one of the really very, more enlightened souls to come into the planet over 80 years ago. And just the way he spoke about her is one of those really rare, even his parents were told, you have a rare spirit here, be very cautious and sensitive in how you raise her. And so I won't say too much other than to say all the stories in the book are true tales, they're inspiring, but the one on the Little Prophetess, I gotta say, she's still here. She was, just to say, she was prophesizing at 2-3 years old in Latin, and she was written up quite early on. But it's such inspiring reading for our times that I just say anybody who knows some of the things I've been saying, they'll find a wealth of nourishment, within those pages. So it was beautiful. I'm looking forward already to going back next year. So what I was thinking of, Medford, was some of the other people who have been used by the creative intelligence, especially. As we go along, we hear more and more what disregard, our so-called leaders have for us. They're millionaires, all these congresspeople, senators, sometimes over some of them, and they don't want health care for the regular folks, even though they're supposed to be working for us. So the hypocrisy, right, just from the start, is apparent. No health care for folks who are suffering on all kinds of levels. So when you see these things in the expressions of such lack of spiritual, you know, awareness, obvious, you know, we're going to need all the help and inspiration we can get of who to look to. So I found a bunch of people that I find are very inspiring to me, and I think people will discover none of them were about ripping people off with excessive fees, you know, to get access to your higher mind, or people are taken away from their families, like they'll do with certain religious movements, or one that's even called religious, like Scientology, where they'll shun you. You know, you can't even talk. They won't allow you to talk. If anybody's seen those episodes with that actress, you know, talking about her experiences with Scientology on cable vision. So any movement that doesn't have the fruits of the Spirit for me, compassion, patience, or they try and divide families up, I'd say very strongly, beware. So these are people that nobody, I find, I feel very responsible to turn people onto, because you won't get, you know, any of that going on with any of them. Though in truth, most of them have passed on, but their experiences will speak to all of us of how embracing, you know, compassionate and graceful our Creator is, in you know, reaching out to any of us who reach out to, you know, to it. So, you have any questions?
Well, I was going to mention, yeah, the going back to the politicians. It's interesting how there's no money. It seems to be a Herculean effort for health care, and there's no money for it, and this and that. But when it comes to war, no one argues about that. There's no debate, even between both parties. There's no debates at all.
Excellent point. Excellent point. It's the same mantra they got over and over again. We got no money for health care. We got no money for infrastructure. We got no money for giving people more of a living wage. We got no money. Got no money. But they got money all the time for these endless, you know, wars that Eisenhower won against with the corporations making money. That they always have money for. And by the way, whenever you hear about the Social Security being in trouble, what they don't tell you is they've been tapping into that for war and other things for many years. I believe it started with Reagan. And so it's like you put $200,000 in the bank, and I start using it, and you're down to 10,000. Well, I project, you know, Medford, you're going to run out of money in 10 years because I'm tapping into it. That money was put aside by you for your future, and I'm tapping into it, and I'm telling you, you better watch out. You're going to run out of money. Well, they've been tapping into it. They're not supposed to. They're using it for other things, and then they try and scare people. Oh, we got to cut back. We got to cut back on, you know, how much we're giving, or take away some money. But they don't tell you the whole story. They're using it for other purposes than people's security. So people are waking up more and more to, these are not the people to trust for the most part. You may get one or two stick up their neck once in a while, but they don't get put on the debates. You know, it's been obvious. Going back to Ralph Nader, you know, Jill Stein recently, you know, they just aren't included in the debates, or that Kucinich, another one who was early on against these fake wars. So here's some people I would say lend the ear to more and more. By the way, I recently just cut down on my cable. I cut off my CNN. I cut off all that because it's the same mantra every day. It's Russia, Russia, Russia. The Fukushima releasing hundreds of thousands of radioactive gallons of water a day for the last 5 so years. Not a word. Flint, Michigan, with the pipes, with the people giving kids, you know, lead, mercury, making them where they can't develop mentally. You know, and they'll grab somebody on a corner, you know, selling dope or pot to be more, you know, something less hazardous. You know, and they're in jail for 20 years. All those politicians, nothing happened to them. With the greed where they tapped into a polluted river for people's water. So we got no money for any of that. But, you know, let's look at Syria, and after that, let's look at China and Russia. So these people who never went to war, and more ignorant and prideful, and I would have to say than some of the angels that even fell. So that we don't talk about. We don't talk about any of that. So when you hear all these things, folks, or these things that can scare you, especially if you're not doing your meditation and your good deeds, I would say let that be a reminder every time you hear these things. When you do search out other sources like You know, whoever else you tap into, you know, for more of the.
Well, this is actually a good thing, because I think as that becomes apparent, we'll begin to look for other sources and other people who have, as we should say, these fruits of the Spirit, the people who have empathy and kindness and care and concern, and that's who you're gonna give us some information on that.
Yes, so enough with the other folks, because they do get our attention too much.
Continue to part 2.
It's just inspiring to see people coming from all over the world, really, to affirm and recommit, or be inspired to continue on. And there's somebody, just to leave off with that real quick, 'cause I really want to talk about other people besides Edgar, who also, you know, were used by God in our time. Some of the other people who have been used by the creative intelligence, especially, you know, as we go along, we hear more and more what disregard, you know, our so-called leaders have for us. No health care for folks who are suffering on all kinds of levels. So when you see these things in the expressions of such lack of spiritual, you know, awareness, obvious, you know, we're going to need all the help and inspiration we can get of who to look to. So any movement that doesn't have the fruits of the Spirit for me, compassion, patience, or they try and divide families up, I'd say very strongly, beware. Their experiences will speak to all of us of how embracing, you know, compassionate and graceful our Creator is, and you know, reaching out to any of us who reach out to, you know, to it.